Jiu-Jitsu celebrates the female body as it is, because you know you have a superpower no matter your shape or size. Like, you can have long legs, you can have, you know, you can be short and stocky, but you take people down like no other, you know, like you know what I mean? Like it helps you feel like, yeah, this is me and this is my body and I'm gonna celebrate it just the way it is.
Ron Williams here again with another Women of Jiu-Jitsu interview. What got you interested in Jiu-Jitsu originally?
Oh, it's funny because Jiu-Jitsu was in my life for a while before I ever got on the mat. So I met my husband in 2010, and when we started dating, he was a purple belt, and he just loved Jiu-Jitsu, and that was like his thing, right? So he'd go every day, and I was always like, cool, that's just the weird thing this guy does. Like, he likes rolling around with sweaty dudes, so that's fine. I like him. He's cool. I like his dogs. So, anyways, we got married, we had our babies, and it wasn't until my son was around 1 year old. So 2016, January 2016, he was like 1.5. And that's when I started training. I went to an open mat. Yeah, I went to an open mat, and I was a dancer growing up. So I think following technique was something I was craving in my life. Like I couldn't find any kind of fitness and I never even thought of giving jiu-jitsu a chance, because I think as an outsider, you don't understand all that's going on, and you just think, oh, it's just violent. And it isn't, right? So once you understand that there's a lot of technique involved, and that people can flow and it's not always violent, then I don't know, I just kind of got hooked that way.
Okay. What style of jiu-jitsu do you practice primarily? Gi, no gi?
So I do both. I sometimes, like, I think because I'm in a very traditional Brazilian school, like soul fighters, they do, like, the gi time of the year, and then they have the no gi season.
Oh, wow.
So usually, like, there's like the last, from, I think it's like August, September, October through December. August through December is no gi season. But also, Soul Fighters is really open about training whatever. There's a lot of MMA guys that train at our school, like Sean O'Malley.
Oh, wow.
He always does no-gi, so it's not a big deal. Like, we could kind of just transition between both. But I think like our school is mainly, of course, like Soul Fighters being a Brazilian traditional school, they're a gi-oriented school, right? Or program, I would say. I don't know, something like that. But I like doing both. I really love no-gi. My first class was in no-gi, actually. And so a lot of my fundamentals are no-gi, which I think are very good. To have.
What's your current belt rank?
I'm a brown belt. I just got my brown belt last week.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I got my brown belt, and I've been training like 3 years and 9 months. I've been lucky to be very competitive since the beginning, be able to compete a lot. So I think that's helped me progress, a little faster maybe. But yeah, I don't want to be a brown belt, actually.
Oh, really? How come?
I don't know. I feel like there's always, at the beginning of every belt, there's that area of just, like, you need to get there, right? You just feel like it's the challenge. There's still a challenge, right? But there's always, you never feel like you're worthy, right, of going to the next goal. I think I don't know. It's always felt that way to me.
Let's say you're traveling, or maybe you decide to move, and you're trying to find a new home base. What are some things that you look for in a martial arts gym?
Well, I think it's always, that vibe. I'm a very energy driven person. So it's just depends on how I feel, right? At the place I'm at. Sometimes it's the coach that makes you, very interested in what he's explaining, or sometimes, you know, it's just the people, right, that you have to roll with on a daily basis. So it's never a decision to rush into. We actually moved to Phoenix in April, and we decided to stay with Soul Fighters because our old instructor in Dallas is brothers with Tanquino here, who who's like the main black belt here out of Arizona. So it was very kind of a coincidence that they're brothers and that we were moving from there to here, and so we were able to stick with the same team, stick with the same system, you know, and everything. So that was cool. But I think it's nothing to rush with. I think you should go to different schools, go to open mats, make sure you get a feel for the people that train there, and you know, see if it's a match for you. And it's okay if it isn't, right? Like sometimes you start at a school and then, you know, there's just something that doesn't feel right. And, you know, just never be afraid to change your mind, and just keep things clear, right? Just talk. If you don't want to be somewhere, just be clear and go somewhere else. It's a free world.
Oh yeah.
No creante world.
From your perspective, what is it like training in an overwhelmingly male-dominated sport?
So when I started, I think having my husband as my main, let's say, my main instructor, my main coach, like, was very helpful. He was always like answering all my questions. You know, I think that was very helpful for me. But I know, because, you know, like, let's say 10 years ago or something, I've heard it used to be very different. Sometimes female well, girls that would train would get more beat up, you know, and it was more of like you know, it was a little more raw. I think now there's a more of an understanding about biology and how, you know, women can be very technical. And I think when you're on the mat, like, and you roll with girls every day, you know, you can't count them out. But obviously when it comes down to the muscle part, you know, that plays a part. And when there's like similar skill levels. So it's important to have guys that understand that, and they're actually open to flow, you know, and not always have, you know, all be pressure. Just, I think it's more like when you're dancing, right? Like, you're not always looking to be the one that leads. Sometimes you got to let others do that as well, so you can find things, you know, that you need to work on. So now, I mean, training with mostly guys, I would say it's hard. It's hard when it's like definitely like a class of all big boys. You're like, oh, going 100% with everyone, and they're all going like 10%. So you definitely get your workout. So that's a good thing, as long as there's guys that know how to let you work too, right? But you know, also there's a lot of more girls joining. So there's also like a lot of times where you can just roll with girls, and that's a good thing too, because it helps you work on like more of the competitive edge.
Are there any barriers or challenges that you've had to overcome because of training in a male-dominated sport?
Well, yeah, what I was talking about, like the muscle, and you know, sometimes newcomers, you know, guys that are just starting out, they, you know, sometimes don't grasp this concept. They see a rank on you, and you know, they feel like, oh, they have, you know, that if they tap you, they can be like, oh, I tapped the brown belt, I tapped the purple belt, right? And then you're like, well, yeah, and it's true, right? And then, you know, as someone that's, I think that's why girls, sometimes you really have to break that ego down, and you know, you don't have to, you're forced to break it, you know, because there's really sometimes guys that can come and muscle you, and they're gonna catch you, and they're white belts, right? And you're like that's, man, like I wasn't on my timing, my, you know, my rhythm. But I think that's the main challenge. Usually it's like when guys just want to muscle because they want to prove a point to themselves or to someone else, and then you're like, you know, that's super dumb. Like that's I think the biggest challenge. And then I mean, besides that, I think jiu-jitsu is like, I've been lucky enough to meet great, like awesome male training partners that are the they honestly like have helped me so much and have taught me like a lot of things that I'm, you know, that I've won with, or you know, I've been able to like apply in competition, and it's created a bond, you know. And so then you say that's where you see how like jiu-jitsu can really bring us together in many ways, right? Like you find so much diversity, and so then it's like, oh, it's not about like being the girl or being a guy. It's about working together, right?
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know. That's how I see it.
You mentioned briefly that you compete, but do you have any awards or accolades or notable wins that you can tell me about?
So I won Nogi Worlds Master 1 twice as a blue belt. I
Very
was
nice.
training. Yeah, I was not even training for a year when I won my first Nogi Worlds. So that was big for me. I remember that kind of really put the competition bug in there, and I was like, okay, I want to work harder and see where I can get with this. Then I won Master Worlds, same as a Master 1 blue belt. That year I had 4 matches, 4 submissions. It was like,
Oh
like
wow.
out of that, like it was crazy. I swear to God, like, you know, when you surprise yourself and you're like, holy shit, I did not think I was capable of doing that. So I did that, and then I won Nogi Worlds, and I got my purple belt right after that, because it was like my third big, you know, like big one as a Master 1, whatever. So I got my purple. Then I started competing a lot in Fight to Win as a purple belt, and I was undefeated. I was 5-0 up until 2 more matches. I've lost the last 2 matches, but it's okay. I'm here.
Yeah.
I live
It's
to
like
fight another day. So
if
fuck
we
it.
had only had this interview like a week ago.
Right? I would have been 5-1, Robin. No. Now I can't brag about it.
Oh goodness. I really appreciate you know, your honesty, like, oh, you know, this is like an ebb and flow and highs and lows, because
That's
people
right.
get it in their head like, oh, you know, this person is on this big stage, like, oh, they must be winning all the time. Like, well, maybe not so much.
No, and I think also I've been able to just because I competed so much, and I've competed for the last almost 4 years. So March is gonna be 4 years of competition and just going. You know, I've done like little tournaments, big tournaments. I've done pro matches, and I've always competed out of my level as well. And I can really say for myself, that's just helped me go from here to here. You know, like, because at the end it really isn't about how you're rolling at the gym, you know. And when you go into competition, that counts as like so many lessons, and the way you look at things and the way you look at your body when you're rolling, it changes everything. So because I've been able to compete so continuously, I think, and compete out of my level, I think at the end, that for me is always the end goal, is, you know, having um, that drive, you know, to just understand that competition doesn't mean anything at the end. It's just about the progress. And if you want to be a good black belt, right? Like you want to get to black belt one day and say, I'm good, you know, like I know what I'm talking about. I didn't learn this online. Everyone.
You know, you mentioned that you've competed early and you've competed outside of your normal belt rank. So, did you ever feel pressured to compete by anybody?
I never did. No, I actually felt motivated to compete because my husband, as I told you, he got his black belt in 12 years, which is pretty, I mean, I think pretty normal. Like most people that don't compete, that's how long it can take you to get a black belt, right? So he was always just very motivating about competing and saying, hey, you want to learn faster, get out there. So he just like kind of put that seed in there, and I was like, okay. And then he just always kept motivating me about it. And then he started doing it as well. So he got his black belt. He was a brown belt. He had knee surgery. He had the like reconstructive knee surgery.
Oh,
Right before I started training. And that was one of the reasons I felt like I wanted to start, just to kind of like get back with him or help him come back. You know, I felt like if I was doing it, then he wouldn't have an excuse not to do it. Right.
Fair.
I was like, well, my wife's gonna get better than me, so I better get back on the mat. Somehow that also, and it's funny because yeah, Jay and I think that's why we're a good team. It's because we're always competitive with each other in a healthy way. You know, it's like when we work out together, you can see he's like always obviously wants to lift more than me, because if he doesn't, then he's gonna look ridiculous. Like I'm 125 pounds. Or, you know, in jiu-jitsu, like same thing, like he sees me work hard, and same, you know, I see him work hard, and there's times when he's won and I've lost, and I've won and he's lost, and you know, it's just kind of, it's really definitely been good for our relationship, also to see each other as individuals. And yeah, just, you know, grow through the sport. But he definitely was the one that motivated me. I never say he's pressured me, but he has kept me from saying, you know, stupid things to myself after a loss, like I want to quit and things like that. He's, you know, I think we all go through that. And so it's nice to have someone, I wouldn't say pressure you, because I think pressure doesn't work. Like if you tell me what to do, I'm not going to do it. I think most people are like this. but if you go, you know, if you want to share the experience with me, then it's different. And I think that's why it's worked out for us. You know, we just kind of keep feeding the fuel, feeding the fire for each other. So,
well, I mean, it's like I always say, couples that train together stay together, and you can pick up that shirt in the BJJ MMA merch store here. But first, a message from our sponsors. I say, just kidding. I don't have any sponsors around here at this point. It's a one-man operation. Anyway, my name is Robin Williams. I'm the CEO and founder of BJJ2 MMA LLC. I want to let you know that I spent in excess of 80 plus hours doing the research, the writing, the scheduling interviews with people, at the conducting the interviews, doing editing and other post-production stuff, as well as doing research into the things that people reference during the interviews. I can include links for folks who want to seek more information. I did all this outside of my night job, which is working full-time, as well as my training schedule. So all that to say, it takes a lot of effort to produce content like this, but I really do enjoy doing it. So if you want to support my work and you want to see more content like this in the future, I would highly encourage you to go over to bjj2mma.com/donate to learn more. Thank you. Have you ever felt intimidated about going into a jiu-jitsu class?
Well, I would say yes. Maybe, you know, the journey really is so long. And if you really love this sport, you know, you want to do it forever. Like once you fall in love with it, you find a lot of people, and that's why they kind of call us a cult, right? Because we're all crazy. Like, we're all like, we'll do this for life. We'll tattoo jujitsu on our bodies, and like, you know, we just like live, breathe, eat jujitsu, everything. So, for me, I think throughout my journey, you know, maybe as a white belt, I would, you know, I felt nervous about going to class. Like, you know, I would like be in the car and I was like sweating and like I had adrenaline. So I wouldn't say like I was intimidated. I was excited, but maybe something there like about rolling with certain people sometimes makes you nervous, you know, and I think that's a good sign. That means that you want to do better. That means that you should roll with that people that are making you feel that way. Because sooner or later you surprise yourself, you know, and I think that's what really the journey is all about. Sometimes it's like when you're in those times when you feel intimidated and scared and you're like, this is not for me. And it makes you feel physical pain, and the physical pain translates to mental pain, and it's being able to look, you know, acknowledge these things on yourself that will also elevate you as a human being, right? And see through your own bullshit. So yeah, I think I've been intimidated to go to a jiu-jitsu class, but it's been more by my own self, you know, like it's been my own self doing. It's never been someone in particular. Thankfully, I haven't had that. Like I've never had someone on the mat try to, you know, intimidate me out of training. But yeah, one time somebody told me, most people would have quit by now. And I remember, and I told them, no, that's what keeps me coming back. You know,
I ain't most people. I don't think you are either.
Right, I am most people, so I'm not gonna quit.
Okay. Well,
So,
I'm going to be very excited when, not if, when you end up earning a black belt one day. That's
oh, thanks, Robin.
and
Are
hopefully I'll
you?
get.
What rank are you?
So I'm currently a purple belt 2 stripe, and
Okay.
I want that black belt so bad. In fact, I actually sleep with my purple belt literally right
Yeah.
next to me.
That's funny.
Eat,
Yeah,
sleep,
I got
jujitsu.
that brown belt, and like purple's my favorite color, so I think that was also why I didn't want the brown belt, because it's like purple's my
Ah,
favorite color. But and then it's like, and it's one step from black belt. Holy 125 in a black belt doesn't sound fun.
right?
But
Oh, you better believe people are going to be coming for you.
God,
Like,
I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna be ready
hey,
for them.
Karla, heard you got your black belt. You've touched on this briefly, but what has Jiu-Jitsu done for you? So, for example, increase your confidence, help you feel better physically, increase your network of friends and family.
Well, I'd say all of the above
Mm.
that you just said. And then I was actually just talking about this with Jay last week, right before our match, and how jujitsu has been a constant in our lives since we've been together, even before I trained, right? And it's been a constant through depression, through deaths of families and pets, friends, it's been there through really, really rough times in our lives. And I think that's the main thing I get out of it, is that sometimes jiu-jitsu will break your heart, in a way, because you're just so emotionally invested in this sport, and that's what makes it different than everything else, right? Like that I've ever done. For example, like, I used to do Zumba or like alpha training, CrossFit. There is really not a lot about those sports like jiu-jitsu, right? Where you go on you go on the mat, you get beat up, but then you get the demons beat out of you too somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you always leave. Everybody always says like, oh, I'm so much more peaceful after
Mm-hmm.
jiu-jitsu. So I think that's probably the main thing for me, is it's how it's been a constant through all the rough times. And what you realize is that when it's hard outside the mat, it's not hard inside the mat. Like it's almost like everything, the moves become easier, and it helps you work through what you're going through outside the mat.
There's a very common thing in our sport. In fact, it has a name, and I make a lot of memes about it. It's called the Blue Belt Blues. And I was curious, what keeps you coming back to train? I mean, you made it all the way to brown belt. What has kept you coming back?
I think I still have the blue belt blues sometimes. I think like it's funny because I got my blue belt, and I was successful as a blue belt. I was able to apply a lot of things that as a white belt was just kind of all over the place. And so I never really got the blue belt blues, but I definitely got the purple belt blues. I felt like I wasn't worthy. I felt like, I had like juvenile blue belts tapping me, orange belts, like 14-year-old phenoms, and you're like, holy shit, I deserve this, right? You get in your head. It's dumb. It really is. When you think about it, when you look back on it, you're like, that was dumb. Like, why do you think that way? But yeah, I had the purple belt blues, and what helped me get back on the mat was just like, I'm just a lot about self-analysis, and when I just try to think like, why am I thinking this way, first of all, right? Why am I putting myself down when nobody really cares? Not that nobody cares in a way that they don't care about you, but they just don't care that you fail. They don't care if you're there getting tapped or not. They actually think most people admire that. Like when I see people getting tapped all the time and they still show up and ask more questions, to me that's more inspiring than having someone who's a phenom, blue belt, and then one day they quit because they got upset, like that doesn't, that's not a story worth telling.
Okay.
Right. So I think that's what you have to keep in your mind, is that your story is worth telling, but it's not going to be there's gonna be stress, there's gonna be obstacles, there's gonna be a lot of things and bullshit you have to deal with if you really, really want it. So just gotta get through it, right?
After the training you've done so far, what is the advice that you would give yourself on your first day of jiu-jitsu, if you could?
Don't get intimidated by the fact that your body doesn't know how to move yet. So don't feel that because you can't learn a new move, that means you suck. You know, that's because any athlete that attempts a new sport that's out of their element, they struggle. So you've seen bodybuilders, they can struggle swimming, right? Swimmers can struggle doing other stuff, right? Like dancing, or maybe, you know what I'm saying? So I just feel like for your first class, don't let your mind talk you out of it just because you're not moving properly. So just just keep going, and you'll find that your body is gonna get it.
What do you think would help get more women and girls into our sport?
So I think when women understand how empowering Jiu-Jitsu is, not so much because of the self-defense aspect of it. Of course, I think as girls, we need to teach the next generation that we can defend ourselves, and that somebody with less skill than us is going to have less of a chance of harming us, right? I think what is going to help more female into the sport is having moms, having all kinds of girls that do the sport right now, just try to talk about it with other girls. That sometimes I know I always sound very culty, but I always talk to all my friends about jiu-jitsu. I try to get all of them into jiu-jitsu, especially the girls, especially the females, because I had experiences as a teenager that I feel jiu-jitsu would have helped me so much if I would have had it. Maybe, like I was saying, not just to defend yourself, but to be able to think fast, to be able to create distance and get the hell out of a place you don't want to be at, and sometimes, it's just to have the guts to speak up and stand up for yourself. And sometimes I think women, I wouldn't say we lack that. I think women are sometimes like the most underestimated when it comes to strength. We go through childbirth. That's painful. It's like that can make a heel hook nothing, or that can make like anything nothing. But what I'm trying to say is, I think talking to if you train, talking to other girls that don't train about it, and sometimes just helping them visualize, how this can really be something that's gonna benefit them. No, doesn't mean someone's gonna come and try to kill them, and they're gonna hip throw them and armbar them or take their back and choke them, right? But like what I'm saying, just to be able to think fast, think on your feet, and make the right choices, if something ever arises, because you never know. So I think that would be, that's probably how they try to sell jiu-jitsu mostly to girls. It's like through the self-defense part of it. But I think there's even more to it, I think every little girl should definitely like understand that they can, and jiu-jitsu is a good tool for that.
What do you think gym owners and instructors can do to help make gym environments more welcoming to women and girls?
Yes. So I see a lot of times a pattern at a lot of gyms where girls are left out sometimes, to just like, there's one other girl on the mat, so just roll with the girl, and sometimes it's even like an unspoken thing, like they're not saying it to your face, but you obviously you can feel like, oh, like guys just want to roll with the guys, and a lot of times, like in competition, during competition times and stuff, you definitely feel that more. And it depends how big your gym is, right? Like our gym's like not that big, so there's like 20 people, so sometimes if you're the only girl, you definitely feel that way. And I know I'm not the only one. I've had other girls have this experience as well, of all shapes and sizes too, So it's funny because sometimes it's like, I know sometimes guys also are like, well, I don't want to roll with someone small because they feel scared they're gonna hurt you, right? They feel. I know my husband, he's 175, 100. He fluctuates 180, 175, and he always had a hard time rolling with me at the beginning. And now he says it's helped me so much. He said it's helped my game so much, rolling with you and seeing you progress and being able to move with you and you know he just like learned to move his hips better. If I can explain this, because you can't really like if he puts shoulder pressure on my chest, like I will probably die. But but he does it so that he can transition. he's like adjusted me before this way, like just put shoulder pressure and I get like a free adjustment. So it's good.
Oh goodness.
But what I think the way to make gyms more welcoming for women is to just, you know, like break out of that shell and just when you work with girls, like, you know, just make them feel like, you know, they can do it too, and that they, you know, that they can get better. Build them up, you know, let them know that you know, jujitsu is for them too, because sometimes it's such a like brute. It can be such a brute sport, and not all girls want that, you know. Like I'm feisty, like I like rolling hard. But a lot of girls don't like that, you know. And I think jiu-jitsu can be for those girls too, you know. It doesn't necessarily have to be only for the ones that want to roll hard. I think there's this girl I follow on Instagram. Her name's like the Nomadic Mars. You know who she is?
Not ring a bell offhand.
So yeah, she has all of this stuff that she writes about jiu-jitsu and movement, and how she's like a really good brown belt too. I think she's like out of Unity, or I think she's Australian. I don't know, something like that. I just kind of I found her Instagram, and I love everything that she writes about how you can really make it fluid. You can make it like a dance, you know. Jiu-jitsu, like exploring the movements of jiu-jitsu can be endless. But sometimes if you're holding all the time, it's hard to get to that, you know, fluidity of what a roll can be. So I think for gyms to make it, I think they might have to focus a lot more on movement too, and not just, you know, what is like competitive technique. I think jiu-jitsu, there's a space for that. There's a space for people that they want to explore the movements versus just the competitive part of it.
What is one thing that you wish male jiu-jitsu practitioners would know about female practitioners?
That we're emotional as and that's not gonna change, you know, like that it's just not gonna change. And you know, sometimes if you see a girl, you know, crying or something on the side of the mat, like just understand, you know, maybe they're on their time of the month, like just you know, just sometimes I think it's hard for girls to understand guys, same thing the other way around. But when it comes to being on the mat, and if you ever see emotion, don't just shut it off, you know. Don't just like try to be like, oh no, you gotta toughen up, like if you want to be part of this sport. No, like there's space, like I'm saying, there's space for other things too. And I think that's really eventually what makes our art and our sport great. It's that the mat should be for everyone, and it should be for anything that I think mainly that, you know, just understand we're crazy. And I think my husband, he says, he's like, you're so funny, like you're always different before every competition. Like sometimes I cry, sometimes I'm laughing, sometimes I'm like hyper focused and mad, sometimes, you know, he's like it's like so crazy, it's never the same. He's always the same before he competes. Like he's just very like monotone and goes and does his, you know, does what he has to do and gets out. But I'm like, yeah, I'm like a roller coaster of emotions. So just maybe look at that. And if you want to coach a female athlete, or if you have a female athlete and you see her go through this roller coaster of emotions, just sit tight. Like you probably done with a lot of girls in your life. Just let him get through it.
Are you an instructor?
I help teach the kids class at my gym. And I honestly, like, I've taught a few classes. So like I've substitute for other people. I don't have a class for like of myself. I don't have my own class, but I love to teach. I love to pass down what I know and what works for me. I feel like it helps me a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I sometimes also I feel like I'm not there yet. You know, like I'm not to the point where I feel like I can pass down like a whole system, right? Like I'm not, like my game's not there yet. So that's why I like to teach, but I don't feel like I should have my own class unless I'm teaching under someone else's approach. So, but I like to learn. I like to learn about all the, like I like to take class from a lot of people. So I see different styles. So one day I'll teach my.
Oh yeah. Well, I appreciate your honesty in the fact that you know, based upon where you feel you're at now, you know, that's why you would be hesitant to start teaching your own class, you know, without you know, supervision. And you know, that's just it really goes to show that you know, hey, you're a brown belt. It's okay to admit that you've still got a place that you need to go.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I roll with Tanquino, or even like take his class, you know, I'm like, wow, that's not, you know, there's like 20 years of experience there. You know, you can't compete with that, but you can also learn from it. And then, I mean, another professor here, Tim Welch, he's a black belt and he learned everything from Tanquino. And a lot of his approach is like Tanquino's great fundamentals, you know? So, I taught a female class at his gym, and I was telling him, and I was like, Tim, I was all over the place. Like I was trying to teach too much. And so he's like, yeah, like you can't do that. You have to just focus. Sometimes depends on the group, right? Like if it's a high level group, you can probably do more stuff, but a lot of them were whites and blues. So he's like, yeah, you can't like try to teach like a 20 move flow, Karla. What are you trying to do? I'm like, guys, look, this is cool. So yeah, I'm working on that, but I would love to teach my own class. I would love to like write down my own system one day, like my own game, but I'm working on it. So I'll keep you posted, Robin.
Okay. Like I mentioned before, you know, you're a brown belt, I'm a purple belt, and I'd love to show anybody watching this that we're all human. So is there any embarrassing moment that you've been a part of or experienced personally in your jiu-jitsu journey that you feel comfortable sharing?
One time my husband was teaching a class, and this guy, Tony, he was a white belt, and I just got my purple belt. And he armbarred me with the move of the day. And I was like so pissed.
Oh, no.
And I was like, Tony, I'm going to kill you next time we go. It's done. You're going down. But I don't think that's embarrassing. But it's funny because at that time, like now I look back and I was like, that's so stupid. I like felt that way. But I saw this meme of like the purple belt like stabbing like a sword through his heart. Like, that's how it feels when a white belt armbars you, like a fundamental armbar. You're like, damn it, the moves work. But I wouldn't say like that's embarrassing now, but I did feel embarrassed that like then, and I had just gotten my purple and I was like, oh, how can he armbar me? And my husband's like, Karla, he's 160, like get over it.
Yeah,
who cares? Nobody cares.
Who are some female figures that you look up to, preferably in jiu-jitsu, but any other inspirational female figure is fine as well?
So at first, when I joined jiu-jitsu, my first, I think like girl crush was this chick, Soana. And Soana, we're still really good friends. She was a purple when I met her. She got her brown right when I met her. And then we both like changed schools and kind of went our own way. And now we're both brown belts. But it's funny because she would like totally kick my still, you know? Like she should be a black belt, but she just hasn't got it. Anyways, she was definitely my first girl crush. Like I would see her like catch guys on submissions, and I was like always so like impressed, and like she was like my hero, my first hero for sure. Then after that, I got to meet Natieli, De Jesus is the Brazilian girl. She's really, really good. She's way bigger than me, but she taught me so much stuff that I actually still use, and stuff that she taught me stuff that she taught me that I never use for like a few years. And then one day, like, just clicked, and I was like, oh, this is the Nati thing that she showed me like a long time ago. So she was definitely someone that inspired me a lot too. Like seeing her, you know, she came from Brazil by herself. She's very young. She lived in my house for a while in Dallas. And, you know, she's just a sweetheart, and it's cool. I love meeting younger competitors, and, you know, they are the way she is. Like, she's just very approachable, and, you know, never feels like she's better than anyone, even though she is better than most people. Even though she could, you know, she could have a big ego, but she's just very, very awesome. Who else? Let's say, well, I love like this chick Fionn, the Irish girl. I like her a lot. I like Bia. The Bias are really good. The 10th Planet girl that was in ADCC. What's her name? She's from Sweden.
Elvira, I think.
Yeah, Elvira. She's sick. I like really like her game. I didn't know a lot about her, and then I saw her at, like, some of her matches, and I was like, wow. So I love her. And then yeah, just like, I mean, I love girls that compete. I think it was one of the main reasons that got me into the sport, was that I felt like the grappler female body was all shapes and sizes. And when I came, I came from dance where you had to be skinny and you had to, like, you know, starve yourself. So you could be gracious, you know. Yeah, like, it's just the way they raise you as a dancer. And my sister, for example, was a very gracious dancer. We both dance flamenco, which is like the Spanish dance, if you know of it. But anyways, my sister was a very gracious dancer, but she was big boned her whole life. And oh my gosh, they would be very brutal with her growing up. And I would say it drove her into eating disorders, you know. And as like jiu-jitsu as a sport, there is weight cuts and stuff like that that sometimes I feel like they're unnecessary for certain people, but most of the time I think the jiu-jitsu celebrates the female body as it is, because, you know, you have a superpower no matter your shape or size. Like, you can have long legs, you can have, you know, you can be short and stocky, but you take people down like no other, you know, like you know what I mean? Like, it helps you feel like, yeah, this is me and this is my body, and I'm gonna celebrate it just the way it is. I stopped cutting like a year and a half ago, and I think I've never been so happy in my life. I feel like jiu-jitsu gave me that, you know. And a lot of girls, sometimes I think that was something else that made me, you know, inspired me about this sport, was feeling like I saw all kinds of female athletes that were, you know, that looked all kinds of ways. Even in your own division, girls all look very different, you know. So it helps you be confident in that way, the way other sports don't. I think in jiu-jitsu, especially if you start older, like I did, I was 29 when I started training. You usually come either from other sports. Like, I know a lot of girls that come from softball, for example. And usually those girls are the toughest ones, you know? Those are strong. You're like, dang, you sure didn't hold back when you were young. And they're really strong. And then I've known other girls that were swimmers, you know, or I knew a girl that was a hockey player, and she was super freaking tough.
Imagine there's a little girl out there who may be interested in jiu-jitsu, but is just, you know, feeling kind of shy about it. What would you tell her to help get her through the door and onto the mats for first jiu-jitsu class?
Well, I say, if you are curious about jiu-jitsu and you feel like it's something that you're just intimidated by, it's just, you're not doing it just because you're scared, then I think what I would compare it to is like getting on a roller coaster, right? Like, sometimes you're in the line of the roller coaster and you're like, oh, like, I don't know if I should do this. You're feeling those butterflies, and you're feeling like you're looking at it and you're looking at it go, and it's making you nervous. But you always know, after the roller coaster, you always want to get back on it. So I'd say just do it. You know, just go to a school. You know, usually a lot of schools have free trials, like for local people. So like I said, just I think I said this before about going and exploring, you know, the jiu-jitsu schools in your area and meeting people, because at the end, one of the most powerful things about jiu-jitsu is not just the skills that it's going to give you to defend yourself, but it's going to give you a community. And a lot of times, I think if you're already curious about it, then don't even question it anymore. I'm serious. You're not going to be disappointed. And you're also, you know, it's going to show you a lot of things about yourself that you're probably craving if you're curious about it.
Are there any female-friendly groups or organizations or gyms that you know of that I can refer people to if they're curious for more information?
So I know that there's the Women's Grappling Network. I think that's the name of it on Facebook. That's a big one that has a lot of people. There's the Master Women's group. So on Facebook, you can find all kinds of female jiu-jitsu groups. Especially, you can find local ones too. I know there was one in Dallas I was in. I'm not in one in Phoenix yet, but I'm pretty sure there's has to be one in Phoenix or anywhere you're at. So just look up groups on Facebook. What else? Instagram. Well, they have like Girls in Geese. They have like grappling woman or something like that. Like they have a lot of Instagram pages as well that will keep you inspired, but mostly for questions and answers and things like that you may have. I would probably go on Facebook. I think also Reddit is a good place. You know, there's always all kinds of opinions in there, but
oh yeah.
But you if you have questions, yeah, that's a good place to go. And let's say, like, usually if you feel like intimidated about rolling with guys, probably look for a school that, you know, maybe has a larger number of females, because you know, if you don't mind, then you can learn from anyone in jiu-jitsu.
There's all sorts of gear out there for guys, you know, rash guards, gi,
oh yeah,
and whatnot.
Oh, don't get me started on that, Robin.
But do you have any gear recommendations for female jiu-jitsu practitioners?
So, you know, it's crazy because I have this issue all the time, is that most brands don't make a small for females. Like the small is always for guys. It's for the small guys. So, you know, as a girl, you're like, I want to show my guns, but all these shirts are too big for me. These smalls are too big. So I think it's always hard to find depending on your size, you know, like if it's a guy size, I mean, if it's on any jiu-jitsu brand, usually it's a guy size. Hyperfly is a good one about the female sizing and stuff. So Hyperfly, I'd say Rev Gear is just coming out with a whole jiu-jitsu line, but the spats really cater to the girls, because they're not see-through. So yeah, if you're a nogi girl, the Rev Gear spats are really, really good. They also tie up so they don't ride down. And they're comfortable too, so that's nice. Let me see. What other, tatami is very good. Have very well fitting gis, like for girls. The pants are very, very nice. Let me think. Oh, Sanabu is the only brand that carries an actual like female, like, oh well, they carry extra small. That's why. So it's not. So if you're a small in girl sizes, then you're an extra small. So if you're a medium in girl sizes, you are small in Sanabu. So they, you know, it's kind of how it goes. But it's the only ones that have rash guards that I know of that have like an extra small, so you can show your guns like I do.
Hey, the kids. Do you have any websites or social media that people can go to if they want to follow you on your jiu-jitsu journey?
Yes, my Instagram is Karla Shellhammer. My name, just like it sounds, Karla with a K, and Shellhammer, just like it sounds.
Okay, and I will include that right here.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my Instagram, and then I have a Facebook as well. But yeah, mostly I actually document most of my jiu-jitsu journey and just everything I like and I'm interested about on my Instagram.
Okay. Well, excellent. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I just wanted to say thank you again for sharing your perspective.
Thanks, Robin. I appreciate you considering me, and I appreciate you thinking about the girls. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.
Well, with all that said, my name is Ron Williams. You can find me over at bjj2mma.com, and I'll see you on the mats.